promptly on time, and I'm gonna take chairman prerogative. And if you look on the agenda that's in front of you, and go down to the second bullet point, item for discussion, and the first bullet point is a conflict of interest. And I want to read a statement to you that we got the bond oversight committee, the new policy 6237. You go over to item number 3 under B2. It says members shall have no direct or indirect conflict of interest in the contract with the school board or a financial interest in any project that are funded by the general obligation bond. This week, I realized that my real estate firm is the agent employed by the county. And in the beginning, there was no thought of purchasing any additional property. It was only going to be located on the current site, so there could be no involvement with bond money in purchasing any real estate. That decision has changed in the last several days. And as you know, the school board is in the process of buying 5 acres of Kevin Smith School and make some changes. They also have located a great site in Crescent City to build a new elementary school in Crescent City, and in the process of purchasing that. Therefore, in my mind, I have a conflict of interest, and I need to resign from the committee. That's the only right thing to do. I want to thank Superintendent Sartzi and the school board for appointing me to the committee. I had looked forward to it. Felt like I would bring expertise and would do a good job, but we have to do the right thing. And I don't want to be even a part of an appearance of a conflict of interest. And therefore, I am resigning tonight immediately and will withdraw from any participation as a committee member, which is the only right thing to do. And I will be sending the superintendent a letter. So with that, I wish the committee well, and sorry I won't be here, but right is right and wrong is wrong, and you always try to do the right thing. So with that,
Mr. Chair,
I offer my resignation. Yes.
Can I recognize?
Yes.
I just want to, for clarification, Mr. Bowen and I did have a conversation with Mr. Bates on Monday, and we just had a conversation, and we reviewed the bylaws together. And again, the recent happenings of the real estate purchases precipitated that. And again, you're absolutely right. We had no intention of doing that originally, but you know, this is a ongoing process. And I just want to thank Mr. Bates personally for, I mean, as soon as we brought that up, he was very cooperative and said, hey, that we can't have anything that's going to take away from what we do. And I just want to personally thank you, Ben, and your expertise and your leadership and everything is very much appreciated. And I would encourage you, even though you may not be sitting around the table, as much as you can be, you know, part of the process and giving input, anything you can do is going to bring value to what we're doing. So I want to thank you. And I do want to say also, and again, having prior knowledge of Mr. Bates' decision, I did ask, again, trying to be as transparent as possible. You know, Mr. Bates is one of the superintendent's selections, and I did talk to Mr. Bates prior to the meeting. I did want to be able to fulfill his slot ahead of time, and I invited another member who had applied earlier, and that's Yvette Jones, who is here in the room now. And I would just ask, you know, again, that did not require board approval. The policy did. And when the board members and the superintendent presented their list of candidates, that was part of the process. That was called for in the policy. So again, I'm going to submit. Again, thank you, Mr. Bates, for his transparency and everything he said. And I will submit that I would ask Yvette Jones to fulfill my appointment to the committee in full transparency.
So at this time, I will turn it over to the vice chair. Terry Knowledge, you can proceed.
Ben, I just wanted to thank you for your honesty. I thought that might be an issue when I read the bylaws and the information, but thank you so much for your honesty. Thank you for your willingness to serve, and I'm sorry to see you go, but I understand why. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brandy. We would invite you back at any point to sit in this room and give us some advice.
I would also like to
Appreciate
say,
it.
thank you, Mr. Bates, for,
Oh,
sorry, walking out. But I'll say everybody else.
He had tunnel vision.
For the record, he has run out of the room.
I wanted to thank him.
We need to take any board action to appoint Yvette as part of the board.
I'm not sure, and we have our attorney here, and I did consult with our attorney on all this transaction, and Charlie Douglas as well, who's in the same firm. But, I would submit that Yvette is also my appointee.
Yep.
So,
You would automatically pick up.
yeah, Yvette, welcome to the committee.
Miss Yvette, come grab a chair.
We'll get your name tag. Actually,
That's a fantasy there. Well, after that surprise, I think we need an invocation, Miss Asia. That was next on the agenda, and he said he had asked you to, so I would like for you to lead us in an invocation, please.
Let us bow our heads. Dear Heavenly Father, we're gathered here this afternoon to take care of the business of this Board Oversight Committee. And we ask that you lead us and guide us. Bless each and every one that's here, steer us in the right direction, and we will try to follow. All these things we ask in your name, amen.
Not on the agenda because we didn't know this was coming up, but we also need to appoint a vice chair at this point. Should we do that? Any objection to doing that now? I'll take nominations.
Renee, Wayne McLean.
Wayne McLean from Penny Martinez. Any other nominations for vice chair?
Nominate Ms. Kitchens.
Yeah, and I'll accept the nomination.
2 nominations, Wayne McLean and Allegra Kitchens. Any more?
Steve.
Okay. Do we need to do a secret ballot like we did last meeting? She's got it. Ours.
Oh, no. The solid blue part line is peeled out. People problem too. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Hunter pointed out that according to our bylaws, the sunshine law, we can't have a secret ballot.
Or if the bylaws.
For
Yes.
anything?
I'm not sure, we need to check with the attorney.
If we're a board, I don't know if
We're not needed
Together.
we probably need a clarification from the attorney.
I think we're okay. I mean, the whole idea is just to go back to the chair, anybody or.
Yeah, so I don't, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Did your party get picked?
Mine's Bill Bates will sign. Secret ballot.
The bylaws, they just state that you all elect the chair and the vice chair, and it doesn't state in here that if the chair resigns, that the vice chair automatically becomes the new chair. So I think you might need to do, an election for both a new chair and for, it all depends. If you want to say.
Make everything so complicated.
They get paid to.
I mean, it all depends on what the
So
you're in charge of.
let's finish vice chair first, and then we'll, this may be the shortest chairmanship.
Yeah.
Well, if you, why don't you do that next time?
Yeah, the thing is, if you,
You got any over there?
I think I mean, personally, I think it's getting a little too complicated.
We can fix it.
Yeah.
You want to hold those for a moment?
Yes, absolutely.
We'll back up and ask for nominations for the chair. there any nominations from the floor?
I'd like to nominate Jared Dawes.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, we got past that. Did you get that? Okay, now you can count that. While she's doing that, we have on the agenda for introductions. I know we all introduced ourselves last time. Dr. Sergency, would you like to introduce our attorney and our guests? We're going to get to them later, but
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Of course, you know Mr. Bowling, Associate Superintendent, Support Services. I'll just go around the room and introduce everybody. Ashton McCool, your contact, Director of Community Relations. Alice Keith, Executive Assistant, Mr. Bowling. My wife Penny, again, my boss. And Carol Simpson, who works for Douglas Law Firm. She also serves as our board attorney. And then Greg Kelly from CRA and Associates. He's our architect and also our design management. And he will be presenting today. We have Ron Odom, our Chief Financial Officer, who I'm sure all of you know. And then we have Laura Howe, thank you, Laura, from PFM and Associates, if that's correct, who will be here to present information about our bond. Okay?
Is that that's the bond company?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And Sarah Cappuccini, our representative from the Plaquemine Daily News, always welcome here, as long as it's positive news. I'm cutting up with you, sir.
okay, good timing. So after our vote, our vice chair will be Wayne McLean. Congratulations, sir. I'm not feeling well, would you like to take over? All right, I think we're past that. Next on our agenda is approval of the minutes.
Chairman, I'll make the motion we approve the minutes as presented.
I'll second it.
Motion and a second.
Call the
Any
question.
discussion?
Call the question.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Dr. Hunter, do you have a question?
Thought we had to vote on chairman. Did we pass that automatically?
We did, we already did a nomination, a second, and voted.
It was real quick.
And painless for us.
All right, I'll move down to items of discussion. First one was moved up, but I'll go back to a conflict of interest. Does anyone else have any conflicts that have come up in the last 48 hours or so that we know of?
I do have a question about it, and maybe this is for a board attorney. So, as a committee, we're under the sunshine.
Yes.
And, so, if we have questions outside of this meeting, we go to Ashley and then to the chairman, and then, I mean, we can't talk to the chairman, correct?
You can't talk to one another outside of a publicly noticed meeting.
But you can be the conduit, actually, to get the questions answered, because I see a lot of questions coming up between the meetings. I just don't want it to get bogged down from one meeting to the next. Okay, thank you.
Oh, yeah, tell you to reach out to district officials at any time.
Any other questions, conflicts, or? Review of Bond Oversight Committee summary. This is in our packet? Is our attorney going over that, or
Oh,
do we have any specifics?
I didn't, I can go over if you'd like. That wasn't in the packet I handed out, though. I believe you received it
Right.
before the meeting.
If nobody has any questions,
Oversight committee, is that what you're asking? Yeah.
do we need to approve this summary, or is this just for our information?
It's informational.
Okay.
You don't need that necessarily.
Question regards to it, is that when this would come up?
Sure. Yes, sir.
It says we're responsible to review the ongoing oversight schedule. Do we have that yet?
I believe we'll probably get into that a little bit later. Mr. Bowling?
Yes.
The schedule of projects?
Yes, so we'll wade into those waters tonight.
Okay, so why don't we get to
Yeah,
that?
anyway.
That's my question.
Okay. Dr. Hunter?
Just one question that came up last time. That was the scope of our role on ongoing projects. The implication that we would try to understand the status of projects and how well they were doing. I thought our role was more follow the money and see how that goes. Is that clear in everybody's mind, or do we have to talk about it when we get to that point?
It's actually a point I was gonna bring up, now that I can talk a little bit more, I guess. I agree with you. I think our role is more what money comes in, what money goes out, and where did it get spent, more than it is the day-to-day of what building's going up and what the status is. But I think we're absolutely free to visit and put our eyes on it as committee members. But as I understand it, our written goal is to track the money and make sure it's spent appropriately. Yes?
Follow-up question. Can we then ask though for a summary of how projects are doing? I have our own inspection and all that.
Yes, and I believe that's going to be ongoing between us and another committee. And I believe that's going to be on the website at some point, right? Yeah, so it'll be, we'll have it. Not that I'm going to understand it, but yes, it'll be out there.
So, Mr. Chairman, back to Connor's point, so I think it's even more imperative then between the meetings that we get information just so we're not bogged down here reading it, trying to make a decision tonight as a
Correct. I agree. I think once it starts, construction starts, I think information's going to flow faster than we want it to. It's going to get a lot. Any other questions on the summary? Board Attorney, you are the next on the agenda to go over the sunshine law. I guess we have to clarify that we are under that.
Yes, the board policy, which created this committee, explicitly states that the committee is under the sunshine law. Sorry, maybe I should be a little closer. And I'm sorry, there were a few people who did get the handout that I brought, and let me give that to you. If you want to stand at the podium, since we are video and audio recording the meeting tonight. And then I can pass those out for you.
That's all. I got one.
So I'm sorry, is this good? Okay. So the handout I gave everybody, the front portion of that is just general questions and answers about the sunshine law itself. And then at the back of the packet is the board policy, which created this committee. And the summary that you all received about the committee's responsibilities and duties and the sunshine law applying to it, it's all included within that policy. Basically, the policy is, more legalistically written. It's a little hard to follow sometimes. If it feels like it, jumps around a little. I was trying to put it in a more readable format for you all when I came up with that summary that you were given before the meeting. And as we were stating a moment ago, this committee is under the sunshine law. The board policy at the back of the packet, I starred the paragraph. I think it's on page 2 of the under paragraph 4 at the bottom of page 2 of that policy, it explicitly states that the committee shall meet at least 4 times a year, may hold other meetings as necessary. All meetings and committee proceedings must comply with Florida's Sunshine and Public Records Laws, Chapter 119 and Section 286.011 Florida statutes. I had thought of handing out those statutes to you all, but they're pages long and kind of boring to read. And if you want, you can always pull them up online just by putting in the statute number. But they basically, just state that this committee has to meet in the sunshine. Any matters that come before the committee, they must be discussed by committee members at publicly noticed meetings that are recorded and minutes are taken of. There are no conversations or any interactions are supposed to occur between committee members outside of the committee, whether that be, through in-person communications, text messages, emails, telephone calls, any of that about committee matters that are coming before you all. That's not supposed to be done under the sunshine law. It's okay, as we mentioned a moment ago, to contact Putnam County School District staff at any time, or to talk to the public about matters that are coming before the committee. You just can't talk about it with one another outside of the committee setting. And if you did, do so and someone, saw that you were doing it or found out about it, they could potentially make a complaint, to the proper authorities that look into those matters. And, then there could be investigations and so forth. You just don't want to have to deal with that sort of thing. And it's best to avoid it if at all possible. And if a conflict does occur, as unfortunately happened with Mr. Bates earlier today, then you'll want to immediately notify the district so that they can, assist you in helping with the resignation process and so forth, and getting a new member appointed. Hopefully that won't occur. I've met Mr. Bates a few times, and he seems like such a nice gentleman and knows so much about the community. And hopefully he'll remain involved as a member of the public, because public members can come, to all these meetings if they wish to, and ask questions and listen to what's being said. They just can't participate in your all's deliberations. So I don't know if that answers everyone's questions, or if anyone would like to ask something.
Exactly related to sunshine. We had the question last meeting about public comment.
Okay.
Are we required to allow public comment? Should we allow public comment in these meetings?
I think that would be up to you all. You obviously are a committee that is appointed through the school district, and you're dealing with, get this thing away from me. I would think, that you could, allow for public comments if that's something that you wish to take into account. Obviously, members of the public, the whole point of this committee is to make sure the public feels comfortable with how the bond spending is going and that overall progress of the bond projects, and make sure that everything's in order. So I can see that if members of the public had a question and they're denied the opportunity to ask, anything about it, that might not, look so good, and it kind of defeats the purpose in a way of what you all are trying to do here, So.
Just adding that to the end of our agenda each meeting.
Oh yeah, that definitely could be done, and there are rules about public comments. You can use the same rules if you wish to as what the school board does at its meetings. That'd be, no more than 3 minutes, and that sort of thing. I don't know how familiar you are with that, but we can go over it with you later if you'd like. And it doesn't seem like the public so far is coming all that much, so maybe it won't be much of an issue.
If we donate money to the school system, is that a conflict?
If you donate money to, when you say the school system, do you mean to the schools themselves?
Yes.
Oh, no, I don't see how that would be a conflict.
Okay.
It's a charitable donation.
You get your tax bill, you can be donating.
Yeah.
We're welcome.
Yeah, I'm impressed that you're voluntarily paying more than what you're required to through taxes.
The law is funny, as you know.
Any other questions? Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
Are we done with all the legal questions? Excuse me.
You have another legal?
I did, yeah, I did.
Okay.
Just on the conflict.
While she's here.
Okay, do you have any fiduciary responsibility?
A fiduciary responsibility? In what sense?
If money disappears, does Wayne have to make up? Yeah.
No, you do not. I tried to cover that at the very end of the summary that you all got. You aren't personally liable. How can you possibly, be when it's not you who's in control of this money? I think Miss Rhonda over here, may face some liability if something happens, but no, you would not be.
So there's no need for indemnification for any of us?
No, you're a publicly appointed committee, and yeah, you'd fall under, potentially sovereign immunity and those things, unless it can be shown you were acting in bad faith, like, maybe you found out there was something going on and then you didn't tell anybody about it, something where you were affirmatively doing something wrong. But if you looked at every paper that they ever give you and you don't see anything, and then it turns out there was something that, was being hidden behind the scenes that you couldn't possibly know anything about, it does not come back on you.
Any other questions?
Did we decide about, was that a decision about allowing public comments?
I think just add it to the agenda of each meeting.
Somebody had asked me about that.
Yeah, I think covers us just in case people start showing up. Any other questions? I'll let you try to sit down again. All right, next we have Laura Howell from PFM Financial Advisors.
I'll come stand over here as well. Just have some things on my laptop just to address any questions. I am Laura Howe from PFM Financial Advisor, and we are a financial advisor to the district, helping through the referendum process and the first initial issuance as well. We are a fiduciary to the district, so any advice that we're giving is obviously in the best interest of the district and the taxpayers as well. Just to walk you through, this has been a very lengthy process that Rhonda has been working on in the school district. With the voters approving this back in November, we worked with bond counsel to work to get the first board approval of the overall canvassing resolution, which went on November 22nd to the school board, who approved it. And then on December 13th, they had approved a reimbursement resolution. So any funds that were starting to be spent up until that point could legally be captured once we get ready to do this issuance. So it wasn't to delay any projects, to get this rolling for the taxpayers. We then went to the board again on January 10th to approve the resolution specifically for this issuance. It will be a competitive sale. It will be no more than $100 million in this issuance. Bond counsel did work to file the validation. That just ensures that down the road, since the $300 million that was approved by the voters is not going to be issued all at one time. And that's just ensuring that this was done legally and was within the laws, so that, say 6 years down the road, there's not an issue that was raised. So this validation had gone through on, we filed it on the 13th. The validation hearing was on April 11th. The 30-day appeal period officially expired on the 15th, 2 days ago. So since then, we have had conversations with the rating agencies to get the ratings for the district. We have posted the notice of sale in Bond Buyer today, after that 30-day period was over. And that's going to notify all of the underwriters out there that this financing is coming to the market and we would like you to go and competitively bid for it. Today as well, the preliminary offering statement is being posted. That's all the disclosure about the district and the financials, anything any investor would want to know. Many of you, your investments you get the perspectives from it. That's what this is, and that's what's telling investors how the district is running everything. So that's being posted today. The competitive sale will actually be held on May 31st. It's through a system we use called IPREO. It's very common in the market. And basically what it does is it allows bidders to come in until 11 a.m. at that point in time. So the underwriting desk on these competitive notes will go out into the market, try and put in the most competitive bid, and so the lowest bidder wins. We will do a pre-closing on June 8th, and then the funds will be in hand at the district on June 13th. So I think that there's been some questions over time, and I'm here to address any of them that you may have with the financing, the process, and steps moving forward.
What was our credit rating?
So we did get back from Fitch was an A+, and from Moody's was an A2.
For those in the room that might not be familiar with that, can you tell them where that ranks?
Okay, so for the highest level rating is a AAA. So the state of Florida is a AAA rating. School districts in the state of Florida, there's not a single school district that is a AAA. How the rating agencies view school districts, for some reason, they have very limited revenue raising capabilities for capital needs. Obviously, you all went to the voters, but that's an extra step, whereas opposed, a county can go and just issue additional taxes to their constituents. School districts cannot do that. They have the 1.5 mils, or you have to go to the voters to get a referendum approved for additional dollars to come in. So the highest rating of any school district in the state is a AA2. And so this is investment grade. This is a very solid credit rating. So when we put this, when you're looking at a single A category, it would go triple A, double A, and single A, and we're a notch off from the double A. But this is still well above what it would be if it was below investment grade. So this is something that investors are going to look at. We do allow in the offering document, if banks that are bidding on it want to get insurance for some reason, they have that option. But again, the lowest bidder would be the one that wins. So that would take into consideration any insurance bid in this as well. In talking to the rating agencies, and Ron and I have had a lot of conversations about this, we were a little bit surprised that they had come in the single A category. We were kind of anticipating that lowest notch in the double A. And it has nothing to do with how the district is managing the finances. They actually were scoring triple A in those, but there's other factors that come into it, such as overall growth in the county, the students and the enrollment, which, over the past 10 years, there's been some decline. New schools being built, that could always increase those enrollment trends, increase the population. The rating agencies have acknowledged that. So we will talk to them again before we do the next issuance as well. And see if there's any way we can get those pushed to upgrade, because the finances of the district and the management of the district, very solid. So it really is factors outside of the control of the district that cause this to be lower than we had anticipated.
On the competitive process, are they bidding on the rate or the price?
So it's a true interest cost. So it's your actual interest rate. So the lowest interest cost is the winning bidder.
So everything will be issued at par?
We have told them it's 100 million. And so there's the par discounts and premium. In the market today, we're likely going to see a premium, which means you'll still have, around 100 million, because that's your not to exceed premium that was approved by the board, or the par amount, pardon. But the premium, because of how the market prices, actually flows a little bit more into your project fund. And so that all sort of bakes into this. Just for a rough estimate on the true interest cost, and this is what I would say are conservative numbers in today's market for this 30-year financing, I would guesstimate about 4.34%. So still very attractive for 30 years. You can't get a mortgage for that for 30 years going out. So 4.34. And that's just an estimate that I've seen on market rates, but with the district's current rating, we'll know for certain when we go to sale on the 31st.
I asked a question last meeting about our $100 million size in comparison to what else gets issued in the market. It's not real big.
No, for a school district, that's a pretty large. There's some very large school districts that issue more. There's some school districts that are, maybe 40 million. Well, you can't really build a school for 40 million anymore. So that's a little bit different. But, we look at when we're doing this, what's going on in the market, taking into considerations. If there's something that comes up that we think will have a negative impact on this, that would take investors away, we have the flexibility to change the date of pricing. So it's something we'll continue to monitor going up to this to make sure that it's still in the best interest to price on the 31st. The clients that we serve in Florida, I would give Miami-Dade as an example, but it's one of our clients, so we try not to overlap the sales to make sure that there's nothing to distract from it. But other Florida issuers could be in the market that day. We try to look specifically at school districts, that potentially could shift investors. I did already receive an email today letting me know from one of the underwriters we work with that their team will be bidding on this as part of a syndicate with another group of underwriters. So it's already out there. They're already showing interest in this. So
You said there has been a ledger set up for pre-expenses before the money, and then I assume that'll be expensed against the fund once it gets set up. Can we understand how big that is and where the money went?
So I'm not certain what expensive, it would be things like, your architecture fees that you're already doing for the school builds. I don't actually have that.
No, I assume it might be a question.
I didn't get it, we had a sidebar going on. I apologize.
The ledger that was set up for pre-bond expenses that will ultimately be charged against the bonds, you obviously have an account for that.
Yes.
And my question was, can we get access to that to see what that money?
Most definitely, right now, there hasn't been hardly any to it, but we will at some point in time do a charge back of like bond council, because we've already paid that, and it falls within the
How
timeline.
much,
Design
how
manager.
much total are we talking about?
Okay,
Right.
thus far, with the two $5,000 binders that we put down for two pieces of property, we spent from the bond funds $45,286.68, and that was, we're looking at the March invoice for design management, and the April invoice for design management, and the two $5,000 retainers. And the only other thing we would be looking at charging back to that is the bond council, which is $25,000, and the financial advisors. Thus far, there's been two, in the time period, there's been two quarterly payments of $3,000 each, so $6,000 total.
But the total of everything that this year spent so far is $45,000?
As far, I mean, we're fixing to add the 25,000 bond council
Yeah,
to
sure.
it, and another $6,000 for financial advisors doing the charge back. But there was a certain period of time, so if we spend anything before that period of time, that the resolution kicked in, and that allowed us to, anything that occurred from October 14th, because the resolution was adopted December 13th, and it said you could go back 60 days before that. So it's only for expenditures from October 14th forward, and I haven't charged those chargebacks yet. That's the only things that have actually come out thus far are the 2 months worth of design management and two $5,000 payments for binders on land.
I guess we'll hear later, but the design for the first school is in progress, or?
Don't get a question.
We'll do that later. If I may, one other question. The bond will only yield money to put in the account of the school district.
Specifically for what the referendum approved. So you cannot use these funds on something else outside of that. Yeah, okay.
What I meant was there'll be an amount that goes into the checking account.
Yes,
For this purpose.
yes.
In a separate checking account.
A separate-
It's very, yeah.
And then there is the face value, par value bonds, and then there is all the costs that go with getting the bonds. Will we be able to see that? And roughly, what is that? Does it take 2% to get the bond, or 5% to get the bond? What does it take to get compared to the money that goes in the checking account, what's the total amount of money?
So, and I will have to hook up to the network to get this. I actually have the list of costs of issuance. I don't have the underwriter, but again, whatever their fees are will be baked in to make sure that they're the lowest bidder. So even if their takedown for some reason is $10 a bond, which would be significantly higher than what we would normally do in like a negotiated sale, if that ultimately works, that their yields are the lowest, that then the total cost is the lowest, they would still win. So I just want to preface that we have no control over what the actual underwriter takedown is because we're looking at the lowest cost to the district. But I do have a list of all the costs of issuance that will be going into this to pay all of the parties that have been involved in this transaction. I just will have to hop on my Wi-Fi here and I can get you that figure.
As far as you know, there are no finder's fees.
Such as I'm not sure what that is.
We had another state only didn't have a big issue with finder's fees. Meaning they just decide to grant somebody finder's fees and they get a big cash settlement.
Oh, no, these are all engaged officials. So we have bond counsel from the board, disclosure counsel who helped with the offering document. If there's any district counsel, in-house district counsel fees, ourselves as financial advisor, we have a paying agent, which we bid out for the district. There's printing costs for transcripts and the posting. So these are all contract approved or lowest bidder approved to make sure that, like I said, I am the fiduciary for the district. So we want to make sure these dollars are spent in the most appropriate manner and go the furthest. So we do look at that and make sure that, but I can get you the exact figure in just a second.
can give us the number.
Right. Yeah, once the bond,
Once
once the sale's done, once the sale.
We'll know.
And then you can always request moving forward, once we have the funds and we're spending them, you can ask me to bring a printout to every meeting that shows the revenue in and all of the expenditures and the detail of them.
And
I'd be happy to provide that.
But they'll be unrelated to the bond
Yes.
itself.
yeah, the cost of issuance is a one-time fee that comes out of the proceeds. So after this, that's done until you do your next issuance.
It's a good question, and just maybe the lack of my knowledge of the subject, but, so if we're selling $100 million worth of bonds, there's an interest rate associated with that $100 million. Do we have the authority to go over $300 million with the interest calculated in? So, I mean, because if the million is gonna be 110 million times it sells, that really truly equals 330 million.
So how
Where
the,
does that $30 million come from that we're gonna have to get the interest? It's just kind of a question.
so how the referendum is written, you are allowed to go out for 300 million of par.
Okay.
So right now, because the market is pricing in a premium, you'll get a little bit more. Say if we did 100 million, you would get a little bit more than that because of the premium, but the par amount is the 100 million. So the referendum states that it's 300. Once you hit 300, you cannot issue any more in par.
The par amount is the amount we owe back.
Yes, yes,
Inclusive of interest?
yeah. Well, no.
We pay the interest back
Interest separate.
as we go.
Yeah.
And so interest is separate, and all the calculations that I had worked with Rhonda on when, educating the voters, that was including interest in those calculations to show, the impact on the home value, that you could do the guesstimates on that. So we had projected out several different phases of it. So all the projections that were provided for the 300 million included the interest in there for your tax roll.
I believe that's what the video showed us. I think the video showed us on a $300 million bar.
Right.
Correct.
Okay, well, that's not a true statement. We're truly borrowing more than $300 million in a 30-year amortization table. You're gonna have to spend more than $300 million.
Well, yeah, ultimately it's going to cost us more than
But that was base rate of $300 million with no interest figured in those calculations.
Rhonda, correct me if I'm wrong, the payments that you showed on the tax bill included the interest and the principal being paid.
How do we figure that? We don't know the interest rate.
It was using
We were,
4.5%.
yeah, I've got it right down here, yes.
I was making assumptions.
Yes,
Yeah.
I was making assumptions and giving us the assumed interest
The
rate.
interest rate very well may change over the years.
No, not.
Well, so with this issuance, it'll be fixed rate for 30 years, but the next issuance you go to will be dependent on market conditions. So when we were running these numbers, we add cushion in for extra years out. Because we can't know what's going to happen in 6 years. Say the last issuance is done in 6 years. So we add extra interest essentially on that going out further to mitigate potential rising interest rates costs. I had done this for Broward schools when they had gone out for an $800 million GO. They had just done their last issuance. So we had the final graphic. Every time we do this, we put in the actual interest debt service in here. So it can, the same spreadsheets that are showing how it's going to impact homeowners. And then we would assume 2 new issuances going out, and their line of the impact on homeowners was almost spot on to what we had estimated. So we do bake in some. There's a lot of variables going into this. Say, we had assumed 100 million every 2 years. If the district all of a sudden needs to have 100 million next year, you would issue quicker. So that would impact the tax roll, but that's why we update those numbers every time we do an issuance. Or if, we know that the project timeline is shifting for the overall program, we would try to provide estimates for that as well. But say it gets delayed and you're not issuing again for another 4 years. So that issuance wouldn't go on the tax roll then for another 4 years. So you would have lower tax roll for 4 years until you added that issuance on. So there are variables in this, but the amount is 300 million in par. You cannot issue more than that.
Just to clarify, so the district will pay back 300 million plus.
Interest.
Whatever, plus interest.
Yes,
And that interest is how you calculate those figures we saw last.
yes.
Yes, and it's for my clearance, because I guess I'm getting a little bit overwhelmed. But if this first round is for $100 million, we're talking 2 schools, if I'm correct. And we've already spent about $50,000, and if prices for lumber or bricks or whatever go up, how do we handle that? I mean, do we just say $50,000 per school, or how is that
We
done?
discussed that a little bit last meeting, I believe, and basically said some of the last schools may be not what we expected or may not get built right away, depending on the cost.
And we'll dive in that a little bit deeper when, Mr. Kelly.
Okay.
Okay.
Because once I start hearing these numbers, and I'm thinking the number of schools, I want to be in the number 1 or 2. I don't want to be number 3.
I have a question. At the end of 30 years, is there any way to know how much that $300 million will actually be paid back? I mean, you don't know what the interest is going to be, but at the end of 30 years, is it going to be 300 million? Is it going to be 400 million, 500 million?
It's 300 million.
So
300 million at the end of the 30 years.
300 in par. So right now for this, with that 3.43 interest rate I had said, your par plus interest on this is 191.9 million. So when I update this spreadsheet that puts in the assumed issuances with the timing and how it's going to impact your taxpayers, this puts in your par amount and your interest. All of that's pulled into your debt service. And then we make those assumptions. So each time we do an issuance, we'll have actual figures. I will load into that. That will be ready to go to tell you exactly what your total interest, debt service cost is for each issuance.
So for the issuance of 100 million, it may not be 100 million, it may be more than that. Once the interest is figured in,
The par amount is 100 million.
what's the bottom line? Forget about the par. What's the total cost, including interest, that it's going to be?
191 million.
Yes, you said
191 million. Okay, so it'll be 91,000 on top of 100. Okay.
Yes.
91 million. Okay.
And all of these are a 10-year par call. So if in 10 years interest rates are lower, you can refund them for interest savings as well, which would then be passed on to taxpayers. So that's something we monitor to have that flexibility that, if the 4.3% is lower in 10 years, you would want to refund it and capture those savings as well. So it does have that flexibility. After 10 years, you can call them as well at par, so there's no cost to that.
That's what I'm referring to as the rate we can change.
Yes, you would not issue it higher. If anything, it would be a lower impact on the taxpayers. Yes,
Refinancing your house.
right.
I have a somewhat related, but maybe unrelated question, and this may be for the attorney as well. In what was passed by the voters, does it say that we can buy property with the bond money?
I don't actually have a copy of that with me.
I have it with
Oh,
me.
do you? Okay.
I don't see the purchase of property specifically mentioned.
According to the bond counsel, who is Greenberg,
Greenberg Trier.
he said anything that leads up, any cost that goes into getting that school built is allowable from any bond cost. It's all part of the cost of the school. If you have to do leveling of something that a school we already have, if you have to do demolition, all that is part of the cost of building the new school, including the land purchase. Mr. Chairman, and we can also have the bond council come in a future meeting if you need to.
Just for the record, for me, I don't see buying property in what was passed on by the voters.
Okay, and that bond council is the one that wrote that language, am I correct? So, yeah.
And it sounds almost like every time we bring up other issues, it's taking away dollars are being deducted from the actual structure.
Construction. Ms. Manning?
I was gonna ask if you would mind reading the ballot language.
Shall the school district of Putnam County fund construction, renovation, and replacement of public school facilities throughout the district, including implementation of safety enhancement and instructional technology upgrades by issuing general obligation bonds in multiple series, not exceeding $300 million, bearing interest not to exceed legal rates, maturing in 30 years, and secured by the full faith and credit of the ad valorem taxing power of the district.
Coming from an accounting standpoint, our Bible is the red book, our school district funding is the red book, and it says that when you're building a new school, all costs of getting that school built, and it lists out, including land purchase, leveling, demolition, are part of the cost of the construction of the school, so it is actually charged to the object that is new building construction, so that
I'm
might
just bringing
help
it
a
up
little
in
bit
case
too.
it's
Yeah.
brought up by the public. We've discussed it and we have legal opinions that we're okay by the project.
For the record, it was not on the ballot, and it was not made clear to the voters. I just want that in the public record. It was not spelled out. You read the referendum. I read the newspaper articles. I saw nothing about buying property to build new schools. I saw about building new schools, but nothing about buying property. And I just simply want that in the record.
So noted, it's being recorded, it's in the record.
Can we get an opinion from the legal counsel, from the bond company on that specific matter? So I just want to make
I
sure we're
want to hear
clear.
that too.
Would you just like an opinion in writing, or would you like for him to attend a future meeting?
Opinion in writing would be, for now, what you board. Sorry, I got off.
I want to ask a question, but as far as the time it takes to get, say, the second, I'm worried about the second school coming in when we don't have the second bond. If that were to happen, we'll hear about construction projects, in-view construction project, not having the money to move ahead. So, how long does it take from the time we decide we're going to get the second bond to the time we get the money?
So this process was a little longer because it was getting everything set up, but we can typically do this in 3 months. If it's super, super rushed, 2 months, but normally we work through this pretty quickly. So I would say 3 months time.
The heavy lifting on the front end. One more question before I forget, Jared, for Rhonda. When this money comes in, I brought this up last time, with the state of banking in the world, $100 million comes in, where are we keeping it? How are we sure that it's secure?
Okay, so our investment advisor for the district is Deepwater Investments, and currently right now, we have around $70 million invested with them. Now, to think that we're rich, we're the fiscal agent of NEPA, and most of that money is theirs, and we go by our board policy of what we can invest the money in, and we usually rely on the investment advisors to help us with that. So I can also bring them in, and they're a different entity, but we were just talking that we need to have a meeting with them and tell them the timeline of the money coming in, when we might need drawdowns and
I
everything.
guess-
Right now, for regular money that I have invested with them, if I need $5 million the next day to meet a payroll, I can request it during the day and I have it in my bank the next morning.
I guess my main question is, it's not sitting in one bank.
No.
Go ahead.
I would like, I'm anxious to hear from the bond counsel, but he is the bond counsel. I would like to hear from the council from the supervisor of elections, the one from the state of Florida that's involved in elections and the wording of the ballot to make sure that we're okay with that wording not actually being on the ballot. I would like to have an opinion from that attorney also. It can be the local supervisor of elections attorney, or I'd like to go hire the state, whatever part of the state's in charge of the supervisor of elections, their attorney. I'd like to get an opinion on that, maybe the attorney general of the state of Florida.
Can we start with Charles Overturf and see?
I think that would be advisable, and I would be pleased with that. Thank you.
Is that in reference to money being used to purchase land?
Yes, I'm not necessarily against it, but since the issue's been brought up, now I'm thinking, okay, that was not part of what I understood about the ballot, so I want to make sure that everything is kosher on that.
And also, in the ballot language, it didn't specifically say that people's property taxes would be increased.
Well,
Is that
well,
an issue
that's-
also?
only a moron would know that it wouldn't. I mean, seriously, one issue comes out of your pocket,
Lots of people are morons.
you know, but, I mean, seriously.
It doesn't actually say anything in there about property.
It's a possibility that doesn't actually prohibit it, that it is allowed, but since the issue was brought up, and I never thought about that. I mean, I knew it's going to build new schools, and that's fine, but you have to have the property probably, yeah. I just need a
The property
clarification.
tax issue, I don't think, because at the end it says it's backed by the ad valorem taxing power.
Yeah,
The district can raise their taxes for a number of reasons.
So it's spelled out here, just didn't, but I need a legal clarification.
Support?
So just a quick question, at our last meeting, we discussed that, the first school to go into revitalization is which?
The old EH Millard.
Okay, and then the next one was going to be, Crescent City High School, is that correct?
Well, there's three in the first round, and the two for the bond, are the one in the elementary school in Crescent City and the elementary school in Palatka.
Okay.
Horseman's Club. And the last time we met, the site for the elementary school in Crescent City was George C. Miller Middle School location. And since then, things have changed a bit, and when we get to that portion, when Mr. Kelly presents, we'll dig deep into it.
And that would be the school that needs to have land purchased.
Exactly, yes, ma'am. And as soon as we're done with bond, I can kind of set the stage for that. And then, Mr. Kelly, you could actually start with that particular school.
And so the land, so what Ms. Kitchens is referring to, the land purchase is then going to be taken away from the construction?
Well, we'll talk about that too, because we'll talk about cost, and you'll see we're coming ahead, we'll be ahead of the game as far as cost is concerned.
I still have a question. Part of me thinks we're putting the cart before the horse here. We don't even know what the school's gonna cost. We're gonna sell a bond on the 31st of May for $100 million. And it could be a several months process to get the money for another school. Do we have to pay twice? If we go, every time we get bond issuance, are we paying more fees?
So how this works, and what Rhonda was alluding to, and I had spoken to her briefly before we got up here about the investment advisor Deep Blue. So when these project funds come in, we have, the project timeline, which folks are going to talk about here, it sounds like in a second. But you're not going to spend $100 million on day one. So we don't want that to sit unearning interest, where I think overnight funds for the state investments right now are like 4.5% or 5%, which is more than you're borrowing for. So you want to park them there while you're spending on the project timeline. Legally, according to the IRS, you have to spend these funds within 3 years. Not going to be an issue because it sounds like the timeline for moving these schools is quickly. So with this $100 million coming forward, you're paying your cost of issuance that are moving. The next issuance that comes, if it's $50 million or the remainder $200 million, you'll pay cost of issuance again. So every transaction you do, and so that's why we have lengthy conversations to make sure you're not going into the market more than you need to, but borrowing the amount that you reasonably think you can spend within 3 years. We've had plenty of conversations. So the $100 million was, I think we had first looked at maybe $50 million, but it was like, we can get $100 million spent in 3 years. Let's do that this time. And we'll have those conversations continuing on for the remainder $200 million that's out there. To see what's most efficient for the district issuing this.
And I think that's my question. We don't know what the school's gonna cost.
We have an idea, and we'll kind of dive into that when we get to it.
What I'm worried about is that if it costs $120 million, should we have sold $120 million the first go around and not sell $100? Because now we're gonna pay another fee to sell $20 million worth of building.
We actually had a conversation about that today, and I promise you we'll cover it.
Okay.
And we would typically not recommend going out for just 20 million. So we would be looking at it, what projects can you pull in to make it more efficient, would be advice that we would provide. So.
Can I ask any more questions? Yes, can the funds that are in the bank earning interest be used to make the bond payments?
I do not believe so.
No,
So, yeah, so I what I understand on this is while these funds are parked there, and you cannot make positive arbitrage on this. So why I said interest is 4.5% or 5%. If you borrow at 4%, you can only earn the 4%. You have to give the other monies back. But to offset, the expense that you have while you're spending, you would want to invest those funds to have that offset. If there happens to be interest earnings that would be legal, that just kind of deposits into your project fund to go to build the schools. But
It's, the bond payments made, and then when are the bond payments made? The interest payments.
they are made semi-annually. So principal is annually on July 1st every year, starting next year. Principal is semi-annually, and so the first interest payment would be on January 1st of 2024.
So how will we, that, that money will come from the tax funds right then, or from the interest earned from the rest of the deposit? Where will the money come from to pay the interest?
So what's going to happen is when we price this and we have the official numbers on the 31st, Rhonda will get them. She'll start talking to the property appraiser so that they can put that. So on your next tax roll that comes out in July, that information is on there. So it starts to collect then to make that payment on the 1st of January and then the 31st going out. So there was a reason why we were doing it now, to make sure it's on the tax roll to be able to pay that first interest payment.
So your general fund will make the bond payments?
No, it's specifically the ad valorem. It will go directly deposited into for these funds. There's no commingling, just like the project funds, Rhonda would say. It's specifically for these projects, and the money receipts for your ad valorem from your property taxes specifically go in to pay this debt service.
And the money comes to us for ad valorem taxes right now. Some goes into our bank general fund, and then for required local effort, and it goes into our capital projects fund for the 1.5 mils. There'll be another fund called debt service fund, and that'll be a separate line item, and that'll be deposited. I'll have to open a bank at the account, because currently we don't have debt, and I'll have to open an account at the bank labeled debt service, and that's where that money will be deposited directly by the property appraiser's office.
That makes sense. Okay.
You'd probably like to sit down. So.
Oh, I'm here. I want to make sure all the questions are asked.
I just have one last question, and I'm thinking back to if I was working today. Now the bond money is strictly for the construction. The equipping the building itself, is that something else? Because I'm taking, we got a building.
Doing what to the building?
Equipping it for students and staff to walk in and start school day one.
That's part of the bond.
That'd be part of the bond.
Is that part of the bond?
It actually speaks to that.
Okay.
Instructional technology upgrades.
Right, so, but I mean, the desk, whatever,
All the
everything.
equipment.
Okay. I just wanna make sure that, because we constantly is sticking to just the structure.
Yeah,
but we gotta
furniture, but furniture is it.
Furniture, okay.
Can I read a brief statement from SJR Law? It says bond financing for school districts can be used for land acquisition, bricks and mortar, furniture and furnishings, and equipment, and many other costs associated with the school's educational, recreational, and charitable purposes, including in proper circumstances refinancing of capital debt. I'm still going to get the official in writing on all of this from our bond counsel, but in doing some researching here, I went to a law website that I've used many times, and it says land and everything is allowable for school districts and their bond sales.
And if I may, on the point, so when we're doing issuances, where a lot of school districts use their 1.5 mils, and Putnam never has. But when we're looking at this, and just this past session, the legislature waived the cost per student station requirement when you're building a building, because inflation has, increased that people could not build within those requirements. But when we're looking at this calculation, there's a lot of factors that do go into it, land being one of them, the easements on those properties, making sure the roads are accessible, the utilities that go into it, the furnishing of the buildings, because obviously if you have a building but you don't have the seats for the kids or the technology that's there, then it's not really a complete building. So normally when they talk about financing a school, if you're, building a high school and it's $200 million, that's everything that you're putting into it, that's the cost of it.
I just wanted to make sure it's usable once we get structure.
Just for clarification, Ms. Howe and Ms. Oda both referenced the property appraiser has deposited the tax money. The property appraiser does not handle tax money, it's the Putnam County tax collector. So I just want to make sure everybody understands that. It is the tax collector, not the property appraiser, who handles taxes and funds.
the property appraiser, the one that I'm working
Tells
with,
us
giving
how
the
much.
villages to, sending out the tax notices and
The
everything.
property appraiser puts the value on the property, tax collector puts the millage on and collects the money.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very much.
All right, Greg, they softened them up for you. While Greg's making his way up, I just wanted to say, the last time I was here, we talked about the Miller site being the site for the elementary school. But I also talked about the fact that, we did not make the determination which buildings we could keep and which buildings we could do away with. And then I had a sidebar conversation with one or two of you about building one there. The city of Crescent City did a resolution, their city council did, and they made, a request that school district do everything they could to, keep the gymnasium on that campus, the auditorium on that campus, and building one, as whole as we possibly could in this process. In other words, you can remodel, refurbish, whatever you want to do with it, but don't tear any of those things down and replace them with anything. That was their request. So we took a look at it and we tried. But when Greg was looking at that campus, we uncovered a few things. Number one, in no scenario could we leave building one as it currently is and pull this build off. The second thing is building 15, which is on the opposite end of campus. We would be spread out so far, it really didn't make much sense to keep that building, and DOE will sometimes let us do away with a building that's just kind of out of whack and won't make the rest of the bill flow cohesively. Well, we're stuck with that building. And the third thing that happened is we found out that there are some ordinances in Crescent City surrounding their oak trees. We have some trees that are in the way as well. So we can pull off a build on that particular property, but when it's all said and done, whether or not it makes sense and then the actual cost of doing it, really make it worth our while to seek an alternative site. And that's what we've done since the last time we met. Greg will get into the specifics of all of that. That is why we landed on the decision to relocate from the Miller site to an alternative site.
The building one, the administration building?
Yes, ma'am.
Why does building 15 have to stay?
It's new. It's new. It's a new.
Oh,
building.
DOE.
DOE won't let us tear it down.
All right, Greg, they're all yours.
I'm Greg Kelly with CRA Architects out of Tallahassee. The replacement of George C. Miller School. Let's start there right now. Just a little bit about it. Project scope is 1,105 student station pre-K through 6 school. We evaluated the existing George C. Miller site. We got to looking at it. There is 45 foot of fall from the front street out there to the lake back there. As Thomas said, building 15, DOE will not let us tear that down. We are keeping the gym. We are keeping the auditorium there. We go in, we put the new school in on the south end of the campus. Two things happen. One, we're spending an awful lot of money there. We're dealing with the site, tearing the buildings down and everything. And second, from a security standpoint, which is everything right now in school construction, we have to spread that building out all over the site. Nothing's connected. It is more spread out when we're done than it currently is right now. So most of the school will be down on the south end on the big vacant area down there. So we have to get kids from there all the way up to the north end where building 15 is. So we're spread out all over that site. I did some quick evaluations. The cost of tearing the buildings down, the buildings that can be torn down, the cost of tearing the buildings down, the cost of asbestos abatement is more than buying new property. And we can buy new property, do it one story. We don't have to spend money on elevators. We don't have to do anything else. So we're money ahead right out the gate, just not having to tear the buildings down on the existing site.
Greg, I meant to add one other thing before you got started, which is the property that's left over on that site where buildings aren't currently located, except for that little full-service building on the south end of the property. We're having that surveyed off. It's, what is it, about 5.5?
5 or 6 acres.
And and then we're gonna, put that up for sale to recoup some money as well, so.
So that would probably more than pay for your new site.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It's good lakefront property.
Yeah. So we're looking at a new site right now with just like I said, the savings of not tearing the buildings down and starting the construction there. We can buy the new site, not counting selling the vacant property that's there also. So that's kind of where we are with the site location for this school. We are Clemens and Rutherford are the architects on the site. We are in the process of hiring a construction manager for that. Right now, we have shortlist presentation scheduled for the construction manager for May the 30th. We started out with 8 proposals. We are down to the shortlist right now, which is 3 companies. They are Ajax and Armstrong Construction, Osley Construction, and Parrish McCall Construction. Those are the 3 companies that are shortlisted. Our schedule has, once we listen to proposals on the 30th, the next day, June 1st, we make a recommendation to the board. The committee does. On June 1st, June the 20th, the board approves the ranking, and on July the 25th is the schedule for the contract to be approved. So that would get that contractor on board for this specific project. Yes, sir.
Just to go back over the governance structure for a given project, which is what you're describing. There is a owner's representative that has decision authority, I assume. Somebody represents the school district. Then there's your firm, which does architect engineering work, I assume.
Yes.
And then there's a construction manager, and which side of the table are they on? District side or the contractor side?
They are the third leg. Which side is who on?
You can hire a separate construction manager. You're not doing that. You're hiring a contractor.
No, we're hiring a construction manager.
And then there'll be a contractor.
The construction manager is the contractor.
And they're on the other side of the table.
Okay.
In other words, on the school district side of the table is yourself as engineer of record, architect engineer, and somebody in the school district who has the decision authority. Somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the other side of the table is the contractor who happens to have a manager.
Right.
Okay. So when you say construction manager, you're not talking about a third-party construction manager. You're talking about the contractor.
The contractor
Okay.
that will hire the subcontractors, yes.
Contractor in place in the end of June, by the end of June.
Under contract by July the 25th.
Can you run through how you make decisions with that structure? So I'm particularly interested in change orders. How do you process change orders?
What we will do is, once the documents are done, we give them to the contractor. They bid it out to the submarket. Once they bid it out, they come back to the board with a guaranteed maximum price. Typically beyond that, the only change orders are deductive change orders for sales tax savings, or if the scope changes and there's an increase in scope, there might be a change order. But typically with construction management, we don't have many change orders at all.
Quick question maybe for Rhonda or somebody. So if the school district uses the bond money to buy this property, and then we sell the property that we currently own, is that going to reimburse the bond account?
I would like to say yes, but I don't think it would be allowed to by law. The
Can the-
statutes and the red book plainly say that any sale of any type of property has to go into a capital project.
So does the school district have capital funds to buy this property and reimburse them when they sell it and not use the bond money?
I mean, I could tell you a real good use for that money, and that's the special facilities project, which is the junior senior high school, there's a district participation.
That's
You're a
wrong.
bond oversight committee, so we're here to talk about, bond dollars more than anything, but I asked Greg to, just give an update on the high school as well. Just because you will be interacting with the public so much, and they'll naturally have questions about that particular school, but we're on the hook for, a lot of money.
To do the special facility projects, we have to, our participation requirement is the entire 1.5 mil capital funds for 3 years. So when we talked about selling buildings from the closed schools or selling land, and the red book says that money has to go into a capital fund, we were going to put it so that it would help offset that participation requirement. Because when we give up the whole 1.5 mil, there's no money to continue on for our maintenance department to do regular upkeep and maintenance of the school or the schools that are still
Let me
there.
word it a different way. What are we paying for the property we're purchasing?
What are we paying?
What's the school, what's the
Oh,
cost?
That's not part of my, I mean,
no, but she's asking how much
There's a
of that
deposit on it,
property
but
is. It is, $625,000.
What do we estimate? the
all I've done
property
is the
we can sell?
$5,000 check for the binders.
We haven't had that appraised yet, so, you know, I'm kind of hesitant to, talk about what that
Well,
may come in as, you know, as a, it hasn't been appraised, it's in the process of being appraised. So if you're asking how much will that property go for, I can't answer that question right now. It's lakefront property, so it should be,
well, if we're here to talk about bond money and how it's spent, if we can't, if we were gonna buy property that we didn't know we were gonna buy, and we think, if we get an appraisal and we think we can sell this property for more than we're paying for what we're buying, I don't know why we don't buy it out of, why the school district doesn't buy it. Capital fund reimburse itself, your capital fund doesn't change if we're able to sell it for more than $625, and we don't use bond money to buy property. That's ultimately what I'm getting to.
And you can buy property out of capital funds, but, I mean, you have to put it on your trim notice that's in the paper. So since we haven't purchased the property on the trim notice, what we have to do is do another trim notice, have another public hearing that we have decided that we're gonna add.
I'm not sure
you know,
there's buying property on our photo either.
So, just to say, I mean, I definitely will let bond counsel speak to this, but if the concern is specifically the funds of the geo referendum going to buy land, which I will allow bond counsel to clarify that for everyone, you could always take those dollars while you can't use them to pay debt service, but to put that towards the general obligation projects that you have planned. So maybe put that towards your next issuance if that's a concern of the committee rather than the special education facilities.
That was my first question, was if we,
Not to debt service, but you could use that for the projects. You could use
that
those
was my
capital
question,
dollars
not
for
to pay the
projects.
debt down, but to reimburse the debt service, I mean, to reimburse that account.
I think Dr. Hunter's question was whether we could use it to,
Yes, just to clarify, Jerry had a legitimate concern, that is, we sell a property and we get money. Now, what do we do with that money? Can we go back and reduce the cost of the projects in the bond fund? And the answer is, we can. In other words, we can take the money from the sale of the property and we can reimburse the bond fund that bought the property, the other property.
They certainly could buy with money.
Well, you could, but is the plan to take the proceeds of that sale and offset it against the cost of the bond?
I mean, ultimately, my whole thought on the bond issuance was construction in schools. It wasn't like, that's my personal opinion on what we voted on, but if we're thinking we're gonna buy property, but also simultaneously sell property, I don't know why that can't be used from the same.
well, when he told us the price of building where we are, as opposed to building at another site, being cheaper, then, you know, it just made natural sense, you know, that you would build on a site.
I totally agree with that, but
And you can actually recoup some of your money by then selling a portion of the site you were going to build on.
that's my whole point, is to use that out of the same, whatever money we use to buy the property, and then you sell the property, whatever that sale proceeds is gonna go back into that same account, whether it's capital outlay or it's from the bond account.
I can't put it into the bond account.
Yeah, and I'm not
It's not
comfortable with
allowed by
it.
law to be put into the bond account. I would have to put it into the millage account by law. And I can bring the red book next time and show you, when you sell a piece of property, it has to go into capital millage because you bought your property before. We didn't buy this property through bond proceeds, so it has to go into it. This means nothing to you all, but an 037 fund. A bond fund is an 035 fund. Very different laws and rules, but the Auditor General, we get audited every year. When we sell a piece of property, it has to go into the millage fund.
Just, trying to wrap my head around this. So the voters voted to revitalize
George C. Miller campus. So if we're not gonna revitalize George C. Miller campus, we're gonna purchase land for a new school to replace that campus, sell 5 acres of vacant lakefront property, which definitely should be worth more than the $625,000 for the new land. The campus that the public thought was gonna be revitalized, what happens to that?
Well, I mean, first, there's a lot there. The public didn't vote to revitalize Miller. As a matter of fact, the folks down in Crescent City, a good majority of them have been fighting against it from day one. They voted to build new schools or revitalize existing schools. So, and then when we first started talking about it, the first thing that we said was sites would be determined as we went along. And then at some point, we started settling on sites just based on what we thought made the most sense. And we didn't own any property in Crescent City that we could actually build on besides that particular campus. It's the only one that we thought worked at the time. But as we went into it, and Greg, this is where you should really be kicking in. And you know, I really kind of led the charge all along. You know, we have this great gymnasium, we have this great auditorium. It's a beautiful site on the lake. The property that we own, let's develop it. But once we dug into it and tried to get it done,
it didn't work. I mean, we're also working on the E.H. Miller site and some of the parameters with that, the number of cars that need to be queued for drop off, the number of parking spaces on the site, certain things like that. There was no way you could get all of this on the George C. Miller site. Then there's water retention and other issues there with the lake in close proximity. So there a lot of things came up there that we were having. It was virtually impossible to get it all on one site.
Especially with elementary schools, you've got a big safety issue.
Yes.
You're trying to make that campus more safe.
Right. The goal will be to get everything under one roof so the kids don't go outside between buildings, and we couldn't come near that on that campus.
I have a question. Mr. Bowling answered half of what I was going to ask. You said the purchase of the land was cheaper than the rehab of the property. What's the cost of the rehab of the property?
I estimated it around $850,000.
Thank you.
I don't think so. No.
Don't forget it, right?
Well, I think a lot, it's been brought up in here several times. We're gonna pay 4.5%. That's $800,000 per million in real life terms. If we have the cash to buy a piece of property, why don't we pay cash for it? That $1 million is gonna cost us almost $2 million. I mean, we might be spending bad money. I mean, if you've got the ability to sell something and buy something, that's just my opinion. Just go ahead and buy it. If you're borrowing off the bond, it doesn't make sense. So that $625,000 piece of property is going to cost us $1.3 million. I agree. So why would you just not spend $625,000 of money that you know you're going to sell a piece of property for and reimburse yourself? It just doesn't make sense to me to spend double the money over a 30-year period on a piece of property that costs $625,000.
And it can go to the last schools and not skim off them.
The majority of the bond money initially is earning more than we're paying for it. It's going to be invested.
She said that. She said we're not, we can't earn more.
But if you can make it right even, right? You can make them the same. So we're not paying any interest until that money is depleted in the bank account. So
That's not gonna take long.
it'll take a year though, but buying the property is done instantly.
Okay.
I thought that was a very good point you just made. I mean, that's something that really works.
Okay, so that's the update on George C. Miller, where we are with everything. Question?
Do you have any idea what total cost would be?
Not at this point. Not at this point. Yes, ma'am.
What is the location of the land that's going to be purchased?
The site we're looking at right now is at the corner of Huntington Road, Highway 308, and Union Avenue. We all referring to it as the hayfield.
I know exactly where that is.
Level is a
Huntington 308 and what?
I'm sorry, it's Huntington Road and, Union Avenue.
County Road 308.
Yeah, County Road 308.
Herman Avenue. Let's just name everything.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm a little confused. I have two questions related to the
Sure.
construction. One is, there's no architect estimate at this point for the project, for the first question.
No, sir, because I don't have a site to estimate around, and that's the big part of it. I don't have a site.
In June, we're going to place a contract with somebody, and they're going to go out and tell us the price.
They won't in July. They'll go out and bid it when the documents are done.
Does the architect ever do an independent cost estimate
Yes, sir, we do.
at the time that?
Once we know this, am I working on a flat site that's at the corner of,
Yeah.
or am I working on a site that's got 45 feet of fall across it? That's got all the difference in the world.
By the time the contract comes back with the price, we'll have the architect's estimate as well,
Well, you should have mine before his.
before it, okay.
Yeah.
Good. And who does the delegation of the subs? Is that all done by the contractor?
They bid it out. They bid it, open bid it.
Who decides who they are?
That's low bid.
I understand, but I just want to be sure that other people aren't deciding who gets to work on this project. The contractor will decide who the subs are, is that correct?
Yes. It will be shared with the district. Here's that we had 8 plumbers bid, and here are the bids. This one's low. We're recommending them, or we're not recommending them.
The school district has to approve the subs?
They share the information. It's all open book.
I understand that, but does the school district have any authority to ask for a specific sub?
They can, but they typically don't.
And and your firm will do the inspections?
Yes, we will be providing construction administration services during the construction.
So as far as meeting the specifications,
We make sure they do that along with Larry Patterson with NEFAC. He will do inspections too.
So at this point, you don't know the total cost of the construction of the new school?
Not that one, I don't.
So it may be more than 850,000, the cost of rehab, or it may be less.
I'm sorry.
It may be more or less than the cost of,
Oh,
850,000 rehab.
there may be, yes. I was doing first things I could figure out off the top, and that's just getting started. I'm at $850,000 for the rehab. By the time I come in and start putting retaining walls and an elevator, because will have to be 2 or 3 story there. The other will be 1 story. I figure in the cost of an elevator at $100,000. We're going to be well over $1 million, maybe more than that.
And the new school will be over $1 million, right?
It's going to be millions and millions.
Thank you.
My question is in regards to the bids. I thought I heard you say we were going with the lowest bid. No, I'm hoping not, because just because it's the lowest doesn't mean it's the best.
Well, what we will do is we will bid each sub-trade. They will come in with the bids. We will evaluate, make sure they have bonds, everything else. And then, hey, is there any issue with this guy?
You're checking previous references.
We're checking references and everything else. Nope. If everything checks out, we go with low.
Yes.
But if not, if there's a issue with references and stuff, then yeah, a red flag gets raised.
You want to talk about the next school?
Yes, I was making sure. I thought I saw a question coming out over here.
If he hasn't given you a price, what's the low bid for? In other words, what's he bidding? He's not giving you the price of the school project.
Subs.
We're the subcontractors. We're bidding it to the subs.
I understand that. The construction manager is the responsible contractor to deliver at the agreed upon price,
Yes, he turns into guaranteed maximum price.
and that's what you go to determine that, after the subs.
Yes, we collect the sub bids, and
You choose them based on what criteria for choosing, what's low bid mean?
what's low bid, we give them the scope. Here's the scope of the work. They take it, evaluate it, and turn in bids on it.
Turn in bids to manage it or to?
The subs, the plumber will turn in a bid for.
I've managed lots of construction.
Understand? I'm not following what you're asking.
I just don't understand the timing. You're going to choose him in June, and then he's gonna get all of the subcontractors to give him a price.
When the construction documents are ready.
Okay, Craig, what do you use to select him? What does he give you to select him? You select him before?
It is construction management's based on it's a qualification-based selection method. We had presentations today to three,
Oh, I understand. Yeah, but what you're saying is, he won't bid on the price of the school. He'll bid on his services as construction manager.
Right.
And his reputation. So the low cost is not the cost of the project. It's the cost of his services.
his negotiated cost is the cost for that. I'm talking about again, the different sub prices is what I think I was asked the question about.
Oh, but that's hopefully the responsibility of that construction manager.
Yes, but she was asking, were we a similar question that you had about the sub cost? If there's an issue with them, we don't just get the low price or get prices from. We get references from other people. We ask them to turn in references and stuff, and we check all that too.
I just don't want us to go with the lowest bidder.
And if the low bidders doesn't have a good reference, then a red flag goes up, and we look at number two.
So you select the subcontractor.
No.
Your main contractor.
That's exactly what I'm getting at. The question is, who makes the decision? He needs subcontractors to do the job. He can get any subcontractor, it doesn't matter about the price. He's got a price with you of total cost of the building.
Again, it's open book, and we go through it, and he just doesn't say, okay, we're not picking 1, 2, or the 3 lowest, we're going to number 4. No, we, being the district and the architect, help him decide who is going to be the low bidder. If, yeah, you're still.
What concerns me, construction projects are ruined many times by complicated decision making. And you're saying that the school district will play a role in which subcontractors do the job.
They may have some say in it, yes.
Yeah, and does that, yeah, okay.
Well, I have a feeling you've built more than one school, so.
Yes, sir. We've built over $1 billion worth of schools, so,
I believe that.
I think, okay, I trust
yeah,
the process.
yeah,
How many acres are in this?
80 acres.
How many?
At the new site, 80 acres.
No, it's not that much. It's 60.
68,
You
maybe?
talking about Crescent City or D.H. Miller?
Crescent City.
68.
Okay, I'm sorry.
About the new site,
Yes.
Okay. The new site, 68.
68.
I thought Travis said 80.
308 and Huntington, is that Union Avenue?
Yes, sir. Union Avenue and
In Huntington Road.
yeah, just a hayfield.
It's either 66 or 68.
Yes, sir. Right down the road from Middleton Burn.
Or 63.
68.
Okay, it may even be 63, but it's 60 something.
The hayfield part is 38 acres.
The bottom line price is 625,000, and it's a little bit less than 10,000 an acre.
Okay, so it is, yeah. So it is.
That's a good deal, a good deal.
Miss Sandy?
Do we have an appraisal for that?
And it lines up, it's spot on, and it has comps included, and it's all going for right around 10,000 an acre.
That's going to be presented to the school board.
It already has been. It's been put on what we call board docs, so the board members can now see it. And they know, and they're reviewing it. As a matter of fact, I got a call from a board member this morning who had questions about it.
All right, let's move on. Replacement of E.H. Miller. This is the one that we're furthest along with. It's an 1,105 student station pre-K 6 school. It's on we're looking at doing it on the E.H. Miller site. It's approximately 169,000 square feet. The architect for that is Casper Architects. We have schematic designs due Monday, May the 22nd. Schematic designs are due. After that, design development documents are due July the 28th, and 100% construction documents are due October 10th there. We had, yes, sir.
I don't quite understand all that language. When would construction start?
Construction, we are looking at construction starting around January 1st of 24.
And again, if I can interject, the goal is to be able to start school in the fall of 25.
Yes.
Is that correct?
We are, yes.
This is a selfish question, because that's the last time, so I live right beside that school. It's still talking about having a parent drop off on Davis Lake, have an entrance there, and bus loop on Horseman Bluff.
I'm not the architect on that project. I'm trying to remember the buses come in from the back.
Buses come in off Davis Lake and parents come in off, Horseman's Bluff.
Horseman, yeah. Now, we are spending a lot of time, making sure that we have stacking on the site to get them off the highway there. So, yeah, so they're spending a lot of time and effort there.
Surveyors have been on the same spot the whole week.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Look at kids to take there. You said the construction documents are ready when on this project?
The construction documents are ready on this, October 10th.
When are they ready on the first one?
We don't have a schedule for design services on the first one. Because we don't have a site yet.
Right, so the second one's ahead of it.
This one is the one that, yes, is ahead. This is furthest along.
Thank you.
And the entire existing structure will be demolished.
Everything that's there right now will go away and we'll build brand new there. Construction management selection process, we had 8 submit on that, shortlisted down to 3. The 3 shortlisted were Osley Construction, Parrish McCall Construction, and Scorpio Construction. We had presentations this morning. Ranking has been given to put on the board agenda. Board approves next week, Tuesday, May 23rd. Contract is approved June 20th. All 3 contractors that presented this morning said August of 25 was doable. One even said we could probably get in January of 25 if you were interested in a mid-year move. So.
So the school district is gonna, vote on the contractor that's gonna do, so are they gonna be provided like with a scoring sheet, like how would they?
We actually scored them and ranked them this morning. The committee that the district has put together, listened to the presentation and ranked them this morning, and that ranking will be given to the board.
Did you say the E.H. Miller School is going to be 148,000 square feet?
No, sir. I said the E.H. Miller is going to be 169,000 square feet.
I'm sorry, I just missed it.
Yep.
How are the progress payments made to the contractor?
Progress.
In other words, what?
Draws on it?
Draws on it.
Yeah. Draws or however you.
The contractor will negotiate their fee and their pre-construction services. They will, while they're bidding it, they will have a draw they turn in for their pre-construction services, their estimating and stuff. And then once we approve a GMP and go into construction, they will submit a draw each month that we will approve and give to the district.
Right, so they won't borrow any money.
No, sir.
Yeah.
Okay. That is E.H. Miller, if they're.
So, for my clarification, you're the architect for Crescent City, but you're not for this?
No, I'm not for this one. I'm the architect for Crescent City Pre-K to 6 and Crescent City Junior Senior High School project. Casper Architects is the architect for E.H. Miller School.
Competitor of yours?
They're a competitor of
I'm
ours.
just making sure I got that line up.
Yeah. But we are also the design managers overseeing all of it.
Gotcha, okay, that's why you know.
That's why. Yeah.
Just making sure. Yes, sir.
This gets a little complicated. As far as it looks to me like the second school is ahead of the first school, and it also looks to me like we'll be lucky to get them both for 50. Does that mean we got to go out for a bond fund this year?
I don't think we're gonna get them both at 50.
Right.
Just everything I'm seeing, we'll be lucky if we can pull it off at 55 each. And I asked Rhonda about perhaps doing 100, and this was the question you asked earlier, perhaps doing 110 million first draw, but it's too late. We're kind of locked in because of all the legal stuff that has to occur, because we're starting to talk money now, real money.
But I can say to you, what Laura told me today is with the par and everything, that we should, from that $100 million, that after all the expenses, that we should bank $107 million.
That helps out a lot.
That's up.
But we also talked about, so the next time, we only want to do this 3 times maximum because we get charged every time we do it. And so we're going to do 100 million, 100 million, 100 million. The next time, we may be borrowing enough to finish up round 1 and enough for round 2, if that makes sense. And then the third round is probably going to be more or less, because when we first went out with $300 million, it would have done 6 schools and remodeled QI. By the time the economy did what the economy did, all of that was out the window. So now we're looking at 4 new schools and probably 2 remodels. So we're hoping to go in with 80 million for the last round, and probably, if we're lucky, 110 each of the first 2 rounds. That makes sense. And the cost of construction is cost of construction. I mean, we have no control over that. So either we can try and make up on the back end enough some other way, whether it's another referendum or whether or not, we're having impact fees by then, maybe we're growing, who knows, but decisions will have to be made further along on the last round. And we would probably go into the last round with about 80 million as opposed to 100 million, just because you just can't build schools with $50 million anymore, not this size.
So, Ms. Martinez, you want to say anything before I say something?
Yeah, I want to bust over here.
Yeah, me too.
We're already planning on an overrun. We haven't started, haven't dirt, shovel dirt. We're planning, you're gonna have a terrible time getting another one referendum.
Right.
Frankly, I didn't think we would get one to start with. But let me tell you my concern. I've had experience in Georgia Pacific, albeit it's been a few years, all over the country. And I have a question for someone. Can they confirm that this committee, as oversight, is authorized to hire a professional group to evaluate the value that we're getting for our money? I don't think we have no control. It's going helter-skelter, and it's overrun, and planning another bond issue, good luck on that one.
We're not planning another bond referendum. He's just talking about drawing down the next 100 million.
Whatever. My point is that I need to know whether this committee, if I'm gonna be effective, is authorized to hire a value engineering firm to oversee that we're getting value for our dollars and getting ourselves on some form of budget. Who can tell me that?
I'll find out.
Yeah, and I've been, like Danny over here, about busting the gut. So, here's my issue from a 10,000 foot level. When you're in the business world, you just don't take for granted that your project's gonna be over budget. You gotta figure out a way to get it within budget. And what I heard at the last meeting was we're gonna be millions of dollars over budget before we begin. I'm saying as a committee, do not take that premise that we're going to be over budget. That's our job to do, just what Danny said, to do everything we can to stay within the budget. So many times government says, that's just the way it is, it's gonna be over budget. In the business world, you find a way to stay within your budget. And I'm with Danny, we need to hire an independent value engineering company to oversee architects and everybody to make sure we're getting our dollars for it. That's my 2 cents.
The contractors and the subcontractors find out, and they will, that we're planning an overrun, they're gonna help us.
Yeah.
Mr.
That's my
Dawes,
2 cents.
I agree with Mr. McLean and Mr. Martinez. I don't know that we have the authority to hire anybody, but I think we do have the authority to ask the school board to hire somebody.
If we don't have the authority, then what are we doing here?
Yeah.
We're the oversight committee. What are we oversighting?
We're supposed to be monitoring the money and doing
No.
publicity according to what I read, but.
That's an auditor's job. I'm not an auditor.
Yeah, so my question is around the time frame. If I understood it correctly, like we have 3 years from the time that the bond is issued to use the money. So if the second school is ahead of the first one, and it's gonna be a year and a half out, if you say we're gonna start like in, January of next year, and it's gonna take about a year or so to complete, a year and a half to complete, because you said by the fall of 2025. So will both schools be completed within that 3-year period? So
That's not a question for me.
I don't know.
They will be, the first one will be completed. The second one will be very close. So if we're over budget, I hate to say that, if we're over budget, we will need to figure out the second bond then to make up the very end there.
But timing wise,
It's real close right now.
finish it within 3 years.
Yes,
The first, Crescent City's only a few months behind.
right. It'll actually go real fast once we get the site selected.
Just real quick, on that request for qualifications that went out in the newspaper on E.H. Miller campus, so that was for a construction management firm at approximately 42 million, but now the number's coming in as 55 million. Where's that, the difference? Is that difference in the architectural fees? Where's that 13 million?
It's a couple of things. One is we sat down with the district, looked at the square footage of what they needed for the school, for each particular school, and we're at 169,000 square feet, whereas the $142 million was assigned the $42 million was assigned last year, a year ago, so we had a lot different inflation then, and we were using a smaller square footage at that time. I mean, think about what the prices were a year ago from now.
Stanley, do you have a question?
Yes, what's the order for the other 4 schools? What's 3, 4, 5, and 6?
So the second round elementary schools would be the second Palatka Elementary School and Melrose Elementary School. And then the last 2 would be San Mateo Elementary School, where Brown Pierce is, and then Jenkins Elementary in Elmore.
Okay. What's the Palatka school? What's the current name of that one?
It's undetermined. If we use Kelly Smith, then we're talking that location.
Okay.
And we're also looking at the upper 6 schools as well.
Okay.
Derek, can I ask a question? So, and again, I'm coming from a business point of view, and I'm sorry I can't let this go in my head yet. So what incentive is there to you or the other construction management to make sure you stay within budget?
That's what we're hired to do, is stay in budget.
Doesn't sound like it.
I mean, but do you not see my point that we've already taken the premise that we're over budget before we've even started? You understand?
If we're going to be at $42 million, then we got to adjust the scope to $42 million. That's what we need to do.
You know, so we look at
If we still stay at it, or you don't need us.
11.
The E.H. Miller.
You said 1,105?
An E.H. Miller 1105. Yes, ma'am.
And that's approximately how many dollars are we spending basically per student station when we look at it that?
We haven't calculated that yet. We don't know what the value is, the construction cost is yet on E.H. Miller.
I'm kind of the one is, we don't have an estimate.
Correct.
So, and we don't have a process, we have a process, as I understand it, is we select a construction manager. Hopefully, we can also do some construction, just a little bit, that's very important, they be able to do some construction, because otherwise they hire somebody to do all the odds and ends. But you hire a construction manager, then you go out to the subs, and you get estimates, then you come back and you get an actual estimate, and that becomes a position which, is that a solid position?
They
When the subs all come back and you get the final cost, and negotiated cost, is that a fixed condition or is that a variable condition?
is a guaranteed maximum price at that point.
Okay. So, but kind of where Wayne was, until you get that back, we don't know whether we're over don't have a budget.
I mean, Greg, we keep estimating this, or saying this $55 million number. I mean, could it come in at 48 million?
It could be 51, it could be 48.
Yeah, so I mean, and
We,
let me, Dr. Stearns here, Tom, there's a separate committee doing this anyway, the construction, design,
Design and
oversight.
They
And
don't
that's,
report to us, they report to the staff.
right, but it's not our duty to oversee that part
It
of the
should be.
money.
We're oversight,
Oversight of how the bond money is
how
spent,
the money
It is
goes,
bond money.
where the money goes.
where the money goes, and I totally get what you're saying, but we're gonna get so far in the weeds.
Get an answer to my question, and then we'll see what we're
Okay.
going.
the issue is, right now, we don't have a number. We don't have a number.
Probably should have never had estimates out there.
I got a question. In your experience, and you can tell me that you can't answer this, what was the square foot price of the last school that you guys have just completed?
325.
$325 a square foot.
What was the one that you had last meeting you talked about?
360 square foot for an office building. There's a dentist office going in right now in our community that's paying $600 a square foot for a dentist office. So, at $360, I mean, right now on 169,000 square foot school, our budget at 50 million, which is up from where we talked about, is 295 to 85 a square foot. So we've got to go up an additional, $30 to $40 a square foot above, and that's when you saw your last school. So, I mean, we're north of 60 million.
One of the things we had conversation about this morning was 160. It may not be 169,000 square feet. It may need to be 155,000 or 150,000 square feet. But then we have to balance that with how many classrooms is that and how many teachers can get in there on that.
And I completely agree with you. I do, but I think we'll go back to the same principle. We're beating around the bush right here. We're building a school for 1,105 students. If we don't think our communities are going to grow, we're crazy, okay? I don't know that you can cut this down from 1,105 students to what, 1,000?
Right.
And that's what we're going to do when we eliminate square footage, is cut down the amount of students we can put in the school. So I don't think that's an option of going to a smaller school, because then we kind of defeated the purpose, right? Because that's the reason why we're sitting here, because our schools are overflowing. But we don't build a school bigger than the ones we have now. Guys, we're just sitting here spending $300 million of taxpayers' dollars, and we're not getting anywhere.
Yes, sir. And there, I don't want us to get into the weeds. That's not our job to get into the weeds. But my whole point of this, maybe, I don't think I'm off base with this, is we just can't take the premise that we're gonna be over budget and we don't value, and somebody doesn't value engineer this project, looking at it. We just can't take, who's watching the people that are gonna be spending the money, that's my point. I don't wanna get in the weeds, I wanna take the 10,000-foot view, but we can't go in with the premise of, we're gonna be over budget, that's just the way it is.
I don't disagree with you.
Okay.
I'm just realistic thinking.
I'm in the business world, I built just a big building not too long ago, but I've made my point, I'm gonna be quiet now.
Dare I ask again? Any more questions?
I don't have a question, but I have a comment. This makes me think very much like the city of Putnam. We got a grant to do some streetscapes and some road improvements on St. John's Avenue in downtown Putnam. We had a set amount of money, I forgot the amount, but maybe it's 15 million, I don't remember exactly what it was now. And at every commission meeting, there's a change order comes in from the architect, from the construction man, because when they gave the original bid, it was based on the price of construction products. Then the price went up. So they did a change order. At the next meeting, another change order. At every meeting for the past 2 years, there's been a change order. Once we get to the maximum amount that the city has gotten on the grant, we've got to stop the work. So the St. John's Avenue work is stopping at a certain point. All the work won't be done that was supposed to be done because we've run out of money. Because construction costs are going up. We're supposed to be monitoring basically the money spent where it's supposed to be spent. But we don't exactly know how much money is going to be spent because the cost keeps on changing. It's like we're trying to pick up Jell-O.
Well, we don't know what the cost is, but you've already talked about the bid is gonna be a maximum.
Get guaranteed maximum price.
Change orders are not gonna be, we've already
Right,
discussed
but
that.
then at the maximum bid, then if the price has gone up, then we're gonna get an inferior school compared to what we need, with what Mr. Grimes just said. We need 1,105 student stations. If we have to lower the price, we could be at 1,000, or we could get 900.
That was an assumption, I don't know that you said that. You have a maximum guaranteed price, but there will be change orders, in which you negotiate. And the question is, what are you negotiating? Reducing scope or adding to the maximum cost?
Is that,
Once you get the guaranteed maximum price, the only change orders, unless you change the scope, are deductive change orders for sales tax savings.
so it's
The-
not, the price
it's-
is not gonna go up once that bid.
It's a guarantee. He's at risk for that. If he gives you that guaranteed maximum price, he's at risk for it.
Yeah, I've been through a lot of projects and many companies make their money on change orders.
Yes.
Understand? Yes, sir.
We've addressed that twice
Yeah.
already.
Yeah, but that shouldn't happen here.
What's the date we get a firm price estimate of the first school and then of the second school?
I'm sorry?
What date? When will we get a firm price estimate on the first two schools?
We can probably, in the next 30 days or so, get an estimate together on E.H. Miller. And once we have a site, know where we're going on the George C. Miller site, George C. Miller School, we'll be able to work that out.
That's your estimate, it's not the contractor's bid.
No, that's our estimates, not the contractor.
Tom, you know,
No, I've seen,
I've been there.
I've seen a lot of
Yes.
engineering estimates. And, so when will we know how much it's going to cost with no change orders, the first two projects?
When the drawings are completed and the contractor bids it out.
What's the date?
I said on,
You said start construction January 1, so
October 10th. I believe.
E.H. Miller, we have the guarantee, right now, we tentatively have the guaranteed maximum price going to the board in December.
and what about the other schools?
We aren't there yet. We've got the cart way ahead of the horse on George C. Miller. We don't have the site yet to even know where we're building it.
My concern is, if I may, just, we're borrowing the money now, we'll have the money, but we don't know the cost.
Yeah.
And we won't know the cost for a good part of a year. Is that correct?
That's the actual cost.
Yes, that we're not borrowing enough money. And
I'd say reasonable, yes.
So that means we have to do another bond before we finish the second school, which I guess you can do the bond after you're under construction, and catch up.
Yes. And then,
So it looks like we have a little better way to get a handle on what it's going to cost and when we know when it's going to cost.
This is a typical bidding process, so I don't know how you think you need to do it.
It's not typical, it's public money typical,
Yeah.
which is a lot different than if you're trying to build a
I wasn't
project.
talking about the money, I was talking about the timeline.
No, the timeline, no. I'm saying the timeline is a public timeline. Projects run different in the public sector. There's a lot more loosey-goosey. So I'm kind of with these guys. You gotta know for certain, and you gotta know when you know for certain.
I think you just gave us that towards the end of October.
Yes, but we're borrowing money today, and we don't know if we're borrowing enough money.
Doctor, we're gonna shortchange a couple of schools again.
Probably. But we run out of money when we lose
That's
$100
it.
million.
And we talked about that at the last meeting, that may happen.
Yeah,
Now,
that
Rose,
could easily happen.
some material that road will get built.
That's correct. Yeah, we know that's true.
And there was nothing in the ballot language that said it had to be 6 elementary schools, right?
No.
any other questions? Yeah.
That was just the plan that's given out.
All right.
Thank you.
Can we get a report from you once the project starts, status of the project?
Yes. Yes.
We've already, it's gonna be published on the website, it's gonna be public.
But typically, these things become pages. Could we, the committee, get a simple one-page thing that says the project's 50% done?
Yes, but we're not gonna rely on you coming to look at it.
Right. But yeah, we are planning on producing an executive summary, one page, and giving to the board each month.
We can get it.
Yeah. So that's no problem. Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Example, I walked in and I was given an 8-page report I've never seen before. I don't have time to read it now. And then I'm going to read it after the meeting.
Right.
We should be receiving this on an email. A couple of
I
days.
believe this was part of your packet that was emailed.
It was emailed.
Ma'am?
This was on your
It was
email.
in the email. Make copies of it. Here,
I got it. There are three, I think, three attachments.
When the email go out?
Monday,
They answered.
From who?
for me.
It's frequently asked, this wasn't in the email. I copied everything that's in the email, but these frequently answered
That was
questions.
passed out by the attorney. That was not your way.
I didn't think so.
I didn't think so.
And I'm a fast reader, so I have no problem.
Amy was talking about stuff that was in the packet.
I'm sorry, yeah, the three things that went out on email Monday were the minutes, the agenda, and the summary that the attorney had given us.
Danny was
That's what
talking
you
about
had.
this 8-page document.
I didn't have that either.
Again, that was from the attorney, not from the,
Well,
not from this.
talk to
this
the
committee.
attorney.
Yes, sir.
And explain it to him. Whether you or the serves.
The attorney talked about sunshine law. This are frequently asked questions about sunshine law.
The
That's all it
next
is.
time an attorney hands you something today in the meeting, I'm gonna give it back to you.
Go for it. I encourage you to do so. Recycle. All right. Any other construction questions? Good. Fast as dinner. All right. Other business is the next meeting. Rather than doing it by email, because I have a feeling you've got a lot of emails, this is the third Wednesday of the month. Does anyone have a problem with trying to stick the third Wednesday of the month and have a meeting in a month?
June?
June 21st would be the date.
June 23rd.
I just won't be able to do it by July, we're doing July. Beat the need, I sent it to Ben, beat the need, we're every other month, third.
Okay.
I think, I mean, just, I'm just one person, but I'm not. We're good. I mean.
So when is the next meeting?
I suggest June 21st at 6 p.m.
June 21st. Nelson, no.
And I can provide a Zoom link for that meeting for anyone that would like to join in virtually to make sure that moving forward, I can just do that for each meeting, and that way if you guys have an emergency or are not able to join in person, it's available each time. If you're comfortable with that.
Longest day of the year.
Oh, it is, isn't it? The longest day of the year, June 21st.
Oh, wow.
We give you 3 hours.
Our next item is just action items and next steps. I did write down, I'm going to inquire about the value engineer that was brought up. The bond counsel is going to give us an opinion on property purchase. Any other items?
Supervisor election attorney question.
Thank you.
Wording of the ballot.
And I will filter that, whatever I find out through Ashley. Want to send it out at a time as we can.
And actually, just so I clear my head, so if I respond, I'm just responding to you, correct?
Correct.
Gotcha, okay, just double check.
It just don't people fly off.
We know they're all
I
on
will
there.
let you know if you do. I'm pretty good at like.
Don't be know they're all on there, it'd just be me.
I could blind copy each of you so that no matter how you reply,
Yeah,
it comes
there
to
you
me.
go.
I'm
You
like-
need the blind line.
I'll mess it up.
Yes, ma'am.
One question, because I don't know, I don't remember writing this down. So the funds for the bond should be in hand June 13th.
Correct.
When does the first payment back start?
First interest payment would be January. And that gives time to get it on the tax notice. That's it. I don't like to look at it, that's why it's probably. Any other questions, comments? Maybe a couple.
My experience with these kind of committees is you get volumes of information, but you don't want to read them when they're complicated. Back to the executive summary, If I were to jot down some things you and I'd like to have as routine products, send to Ashley, would that be okay?
As long as we're good with that.
Yeah, I will always do a draft agenda and let Jared approve it. So, you know, we'll talk about, that's how Ben and I did the agenda for this meeting. So if he sees something that needs to be added,
And I have a,
share with him what you asked, he can share with me what
Yeah,
to.
I just think a routine report,
Sure.
that carries a few pages with summary information
Okay.
would be helpful.
and I do have additional questions that I want to make sure we covered. I'm not going to hand it to Dan. We will make sure they were at least addressed tonight. If not, they'll be on the agenda for next week.
If you're gonna add on the agenda, the
Public comment.
Also tomorrow on the website will be a link to this recorded meeting. So on the Bond Oversight Committee website, it has the list of meeting dates and there'll be a link.
Will you put a disclaimer of time?
It will be, it'll show how long. But that will be available tomorrow.
Motion for adjournment?
I moved to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
You got the-